I think we are going live. Look at that. It says we are live, so we must be live. Hello, my friends. Charlie Beagle. Hello. Scott Rhodes. Hello. Harmonica and Guitar Progress has a question right out of the gate. Let's do it. Let's get right into it. Harmonica and Guitar Progress, please post your question. And even though I know you are about to ask a question, for the sake of formality, put a couple question marks before your question, and then I'll get to it because that's what we do here. Welcome everybody to the 13th Guitar Q&A live stream podcast, where you ask me a bunch of questions and I answer them. And then whenever we have a little break, I have an agenda. I have plenty to talk to you guys about, things that I think are important. We'll find out what those things are. So harmonica and guitar progress, I'm ready for you. What is on my agenda today includes, I'd like to hear if some of you guys tried out playing along with those backing tracks that we talked about in the last live stream. I'd love to hear how that went for you. I want to turn you on to a couple of cool guitar players that you might never have heard of. So I'm going to be posting some YouTube links in the chat. I want to talk to you about a Steve Vai quote that has been bugging me. I mentioned this a while back, and I have the quote here. And so we're going to talk about this particular quote. It has really nothing to do with Steve Vai himself, but it's more the sentiments expressed in the quote. Can't wait to get into that with you. Also, today is bass day. I hope to turn some of you on to being bass players. Okay, so today is bass day, especially if you don't even have a bass and you've never even considered playing the bass. Stick around. And what else is on my mind? Ooh, Wild Mountain Thyme. I just posted this on my website, a chord-melody arrangement, my chord-melody arrangement to the famous Scottish folk tune, Wild Mountain Thyme. I want to play that for you guys during today's live stream and just give you some tips about it because some of you are members of my website, www.song-bike.com, and some of you might want to consider that. So I'm going to walk you through that very cool arrangement, kind of easy and beautiful. So I can't wait to show you that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm waiting for a question here. Harmonica and guitar progress. I'm waiting for that question. A to Z me. Sorry, you got some rain in Montreal. Hopefully not too much rain. Oh, I have a rain story for you. Hey, Jerry from Springfield, Missouri. Okay. Harmonica and guitar progress asks, I am reading. Okay. Harmonica and Guitar Progress asks, I am wondering about how one goes about upgrading their recording setup. I use my phone and get good results. Excellent. But I'm wondering about all this equipment out there, Sweetwater, stuff, etc. Yeah. The good news is, as you guys maybe know, that we have so much technology at our fingertips. The Beatles made Sgt. Pepper with how many tracks? For the record, I'm holding up 4 fingers, Your Honor. 4 tracks. That means they recorded a bunch of stuff on one track, well, a bunch of stuff on say 3 tracks, bounce it all over to the 4th track, erase the first 3 tracks, did it again. We have more technology probably on an inexpensive phone, on a burner phone. We probably have more technology than the Beatles do when they made Sgt. Pepper. So harmonica and guitar progress, you're on the right track. Can't go wrong with reaching out to Sweetwater to get some suggestions. You've been using your phone. Have you been using the built-in microphone? Because one thing you can do is get a better quality phone, a better quality microphone that's intended to plug into your phone. And right there, you should notice profound differences. That's what I've been told, and something I'm considering myself, that you get surprisingly higher quality recordings for live music, for your own performing, when you plug in a aftermarket microphone into your phone and use that as opposed to the microphone that comes with your phone. So right there, if you're not already doing that, that's something. Another plan is simply getting away from your phone altogether and using recording software that's available. Lots of it is available for free. There's recording software that you can pay for. It becomes a commitment. You know your own patience level. Anything you want to learn, whether you like it or not, you have to watch a YouTube video on how to use that equipment. That gets old for me. Sometimes I just want to read an owner's manual. I want to sip an iced coffee and read the owner's manual at my leisure. I don't want to watch another YouTube video, but there's so much great technology out there. So harmonica and guitar progress, I have one big suggestion. Start off with a budget. Maybe you're going to say, I want to spend $200 and upgrade. I want to spend $500 and take my stuff to the next level. Then you reach out to Sweetwater and you tell them that. You say, look, man, I got $500. Here's what I'm using right now. What's the next thing? And the reason I'm suggesting Sweetwater is great service, great prices. When you contact someone at Sweetwater, your sales engineer, you are talking with someone who gets paid by commission, and they really want to make you happy. And they, in my experience, they work pretty hard to make you happy. So that's one step. In a perfect world, we'd all have neighborhood music stores. We would have people in the recording industry, but barring that, Sweetwater is a great first step. You can Google stuff and look for reviews and suggestions, and that's great. But you might save yourself some time just going right to Sweetwater. Long story short, though, in terms of recording, in general, the better quality microphones, the better quality, the final product. And you can set a budget for yourself, but simply by upgrading the microphone situation is a good step in the right direction. So those are my thoughts off the top of my head. If any of you all have suggestions about, recording software, recording equipment, feel free to post them in the chat. For a lot of years now, I've used the Sonar program for recording software. And I got it purely to be a rebel, because at that time, this is like 20 years ago, everyone was using Pro Tools. Pro Tools was the industry standard, I guess. I assume it still is. And I thought, I'm going to be a rebel and not use Pro Tools. That was the extent of my logic. And I had great experience with the Sonar Cakewalk software. But there's a lot of software out there, and a lot of it is free. In fact, you could even Google free recording software. If you don't already have an interface, I'm using an interface right now, the Volt 2 product, VOLT 2, actually suggested to me by my Sweetwater sales engineer. And it allows for two inputs, either, two microphones like the one I'm using right now, or two, guitars, like a typical guitar cable. It has a preamp that in theory gives a little vintage tone, or a little vintage, EQ to whatever I'm recording. In fact, right now, if my voice sounds slightly older, if I sound like I'm 76, it could be the vintage preamp. I don't know. I pressed the button just for fun. It also has phantom power. Some microphones, including the one that I'm using right now, relies on phantom power. Anyways, the bottom line is an interface. If you don't have one, that's how you plug in microphones and get everything plugged in, and then one wire out to your computer. Okay. So hopefully some of those tips are helpful. I'm saying a few more hellos here. Candy, hello, Candy. I see your question. I'll get to your question in a second. Jerry, hello, Jerry. Jerry's giving some recording advice. Marcelo, hello. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Marcilio from Brazil. Wow, hello from Brazil. Johnny Midnight, hello. Steve Mannion, hello. Oh, Steve, you've been checking out my book. Excellent. Steve Mannion acquired a copy of Easy Guitar, Chord and Lead Tricks. Looks like this. It is available from my website, www.song-bike.com. It's a cool book. Hello, Booba John. Hello, Danielle. Okay, so I'm going to zip up here to Candy's question. Candy says, what fingerpicking styles do you recommend for beginners? Can you show a ditty? Also, I practiced a blues riff you mentioned last week. Thanks. Excellent. Yeah, Candy, I'm happy to help. For beginners, the first thing for fingerpicking is to orient your hand. And the second thing is to begin doing some easy patterns that require you to keep your hand oriented that way. So what does that mean? In general, when you're doing bare finger picking, your thumb is in charge of the three bass strings. I'm going to grab a E minor chord. and then your index, middle, and ring each get a string. Index finger on the third skinny string, G. Middle finger on the second skinny string, B. Ring finger on the first skinny string, E. Okay, so thumb is in charge of the three fat ones, and then index, middle, and ring each get their own personal string. Now, for our purposes at the moment, you are never going to vary from that orientation, okay? Of course, there are exceptions, but let's pretend there are never any exceptions. So now that your hand is oriented that way, right? It's good to have a pattern to work on. And the pattern I'm going to do, just because it's easy to understand and easy to play, I'm going to play it and then I'll talk about it. Okay, so what am I doing? Thumb is plucking the fat sixth string, index, third skinny string, middle, second string, B string, ring finger, first string. Now I would describe it as going like this: 6, 3, 2, 1. Do it again. 6, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. By 6, I mean the fat string. And then 3, 2, 1, 6, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 6, 2, 1, 2, 3, 6, 3, 2. Okay, I would describe that as a 6-note finger picking pattern, kind of the House of the Rising Sun kind of vibe. That kind of vibe. Okay, that pattern I just showed you, 6, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, with that orientation. You do that with any chord you're good at. In fact, it's a way to find out how good you really are at your chords, because finger picking exposes any buzzy or dead sound, and you do this over and over again. The ways you stay focused and not zone out about how repetitive and monotonous it might sound: change chords, of course, okay, as many different chords as possible, and hum something, make up a tune, do something to engage your creativeness, because otherwise it is going to feel like this repetitive, boring exercise. When you change to certain chords, your thumb will make an adjustment. I'm going to change over to an A minor chord. My thumb will no longer start on the 6th string. It's going to start on the 5th string. Why? Because it sounds better. Also, because the 5th string is the open A string, I'm playing an A minor chord. Okay, so the one thing that's going to change when you do this intro to finger picking pattern, the one thing that's going to change, depending on the chord, is the very first thumb stroke. Everything else stays the same. Here's one more example: a D major chord. I would describe this as 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2. My first thumb stroke is on the 4th string, the D string. Remember when I say 4th string, 6 is the fattest, 1 is the skinniest. Okay, so that pattern, some of you might think, oh my God, that's so easy. Yeah, it is. It should be super easy, especially with a couple practice sessions. But remember, one of the things we're doing is we're training your picking hand to stay true to this orientation. For instance, some of you, even if you've done a little bit of finger picking, maybe you don't use your ring finger too much, and now we are forcing you to use your ring finger because you got to, because hey, anyone with confident fingers, basically the more fingers that you have that are confident, the more sophisticated stuff you'll be able to play. So Cindy, that's a starter. On my YouTube channel, I have a finger picking lesson playlist. So you go to my YouTube channel and click on the playlists tab, and I have a whole bunch of playlists, but one is specifically finger picking. And everything I just described and many more are found in the Strum Pattern Bible. Okay, so in fact, what I just showed you, that 6-note pattern, is the first one in the finger picking section. And there's a whole bunch of other patterns, because that first finger picking is all about patterns, right? Learning as many repetitive patterns as you can, getting comfortable with them, getting used to them. And then the sky's the limit from there. But you got to start off with some patterns first. So Candy, did I say Cindy? I meant Candy. Candy, that's a great question. That's what I would recommend. And if you're so inclined, you could grow out your fingernails a little bit. The sound of a slightly longer fingernail on the string sounds really good. Not everybody can do that for a variety of reasons. Partly, because they break, right? Some people's nails just break super fast. But last word on the subject. You're welcome to experiment using a plastic thumb pick and metal finger picks. I don't recommend them, but there's advantages, especially the volume that you're going to get. Unless you have a pressing reason to use a thumb pick and finger picks to do finger picking, I wouldn't necessarily bother with it. Segovia didn't, and you can play plenty well with just your bare skin and your bare fingers. But you're welcome to do some research and buy yourself a thumb pick and finger picks, and nothing wrong with that. Plenty of professionals do that, but plenty don't, including every classical guitarist you've ever heard of in your life. So that's a great question. Thanks for letting me talk a little bit about finger picking. Danielle, you're not asking a question, Danielle, but I'm going to treat it like a question. Danielle says, I just received a T-style guitar, Telecaster style. For the first few hours, I was very happy with the guitar until I noticed the alignment of the neck, the 6 saddles, and the string through the body holes. Well, the number one thing is to be happy. So, yeah, bring it to somebody. It could be that it needs some type of adjustment, or it could be maybe something seems out of alignment, but they'll show you how it actually is okay. But you want to be happy. You don't want to. I encourage anybody who's somehow, if your instrument is not quite right, yeah, bring it to someone, show it to someone. If there's not a luthier or guitar tech in your neighborhood, I understand. You may be able to find one online and start off by sending pictures and saying, hey, if this truly needs repair, I'd be happy to get the guitar to you, but can you take a look and tell me? This is another situation where it's great to know a few super experienced or professional guitar players in your life so you can show them. Best case scenario, it only appears that something is out of alignment. Worst case scenario is the guitar needs some major repair or something. So I wish I could do more for you, but those suggestions. Jerry Stillwell got the Boss Blues driver pedal and really likes it. Excellent. Okay, scrolling down here. Charlie Beagle asks, is there any basic sequence when you're finger picking a fretted chord? Say D might be 4-1-2-1. Yes. What I'm going to do, well, you said a basic sequence. The premise is that there are infinite, not really infinite, but there are plenty of a huge variety of potential finger picking patterns. So instead of suggesting a pattern that's unique to D, I want to suggest an approach to a D chord, because presumably you're doing a song with lots of other chords. And for our purposes, our premise is that you're going to maintain the same basic pattern for every chord with tiny adjustments here and there for consistency, right? So the song has a consistent feel to it. But D is unique. And here's why. And I'm glad you brought up the D chord. In fact, this is probably why you brought the D chord. Many teachers, including me, tell people, okay, D, it's the 4 skinny strings and you avoid the 2 fat strings. And that's half right. It's actually 5 strings. You can, when you're strumming or finger picking any D major chord or D minor or D7 for that matter, you actually can include the open 5th string, the A string. Why? Because the A note is harmonious. In fact, you can see I'm holding on a D major chord and my index finger is on the note A, 3rd skinny string segment. That's a note A. It's a legal note. It's a legal note. So why do teachers, including me, tell people not to play the open 5th string when you totally can do that? 2 reasons. It changes the name, technically, right? Some of you know this already. If you're strumming a D chord or D minor or D7 down here, one of the cowboy chords down here, and you include the open 5th string, now the chord is known as D/A. A D chord with A is a low note. It's a technicality. Don't overthink it. But slash chords. You guys have heard me talk about slash chords before. Another reason why I don't, from the get-go, I don't tell a student to avoid I don't let them include the open fifth string when they're strumming a D chord, is this whole concept of the root note being an extremely important note to be aware of. When you're grabbing a D major or D minor or D7 chord, it's really, really, really important to know that the open fourth string produces the note D, right? That's what we tune to. And that for this moment in time, when you're strumming a D chord, it's really important to know that there's your root note right there. So I'm not going to say that A string is off limits, but at first, the root note, because the root note is such a significant location, so to speak, a musical location, it's really good to keep the beginner guitar student focused on that note and not say, go ahead, hit the fifth string. It's, just hit it, whatever. But soon you play the guitar for a few weeks, a few months, and soon the topic is going to come up in conversation, either with your teacher, like today, or you're going to hit that open fifth string accidentally while you're strumming a D chord, and you're going to say, wait a minute, it sounds fine. Why do people say don't include that? Okay. So, Charlie, you're asking about any basic sequence when you're picking a D chord. Anything goes. I'm going to use the pattern I talked about a minute ago, the 6-note. My thumb is going to alternate between 4 and 5. Why? Because I can. Because it's more interesting than not alternating. So I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to not talk. 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5. 4, 5. Sounds nice, right? So I'm alternating my thumb between the fourth and the fifth. I'm doing the fourth first because it's the root note. Do I have to do that? No. But the number one thing is to be aware of where the root note is on any given chord, know which string it's on, basically. And then what you do with that information is up to you. But you can't go wrong by banging that root note first, whether you're picking with a plastic pick or finger picking. You can't go wrong by hitting that note loud and proud, and then continue on with your fingertips. And when I say hit it loud and proud, I'm talking about hitting with your bare thumb, or technically if you're strumming with a pick, hitting that individual note by itself. Charlie, I hope that answers your question. Jerry Stillwell asked a good question. Who makes left-handed finger picks? Good news and bad news. The metal finger picks that are typically what people use on their index, middle, and potentially even ring fingers, those are neither righty nor lefty. Thumb picks are righty or lefty. And you'd have to Google it. Somewhere out there, I'm sure there's someone who makes lefty thumb picks. Because typically thumb picks are not symmetrical. And, if you're a lefty, you want to get a lefty thumb pick. So, but I'm afraid you're going to have to Google it. But they're out there. They are. Candy, you're very welcome. CLS Great says, I'm reading. Okay. CLS Great says, got the strum pattern Bible. Thank you for your purchase. Thank you. Also interested in better plectrum picking. Okay, good. Okay, cool idea. Does Jonathan think trying finger picking patterns with a pick would help? Not the pinch patterns, of course. Actually, I'm going to tell you how you can do the pinch patterns. But yeah, it's a great idea. Of course, in the Strum Pattern Bible, it does, as you know, it has a whole bunch of plectrum patterns in the beginning, like physically, literally strumming with a pick. But so let's use an example here. The thing I just did, page 86, if you guys are keeping score at home. Page 86 is where the finger picking stuff begins. And you can play lots of this stuff with a pick. So far, we'll get to the pinch pattern in a minute. So far, you can play all of this stuff with a pick. And I think that would be a cool challenge. Yeah. Is it in this book? Yes, page 45. Okay, page 45. Behind Blue Eyes by The Who, right? Pete Townsend, The Who, Behind Blue Eyes. I've never really made up my mind as to whether Pete Townsend is playing Behind Blue Eyes, that great intro, if he's playing it with his bare fingers or with a pick. Sometimes you can really hear the softness of flesh. And sometimes you can hear the articulate plastic sound of a pick. I'm talking about generally. Behind Blue Eyes, I've never really made up my mind. So what's my point? There you go, page 45, CLS Create, play it with bare fingers and play it with a pick. Why not? There's a perfect example because I don't know which is which. And even if someone posts up a video on YouTube and says, there he is, he's playing it live with a pick. Yeah, but when he first recorded it, he might have been doing his bare fingers. So I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, there's an example. Okay, but you bring up a good point. What about the moments? And I'm going to give you guys an example of this. The moments when a finger picker is finger picking and they do two strings at the same time, which I call a pinch. I'm not the only one who calls that a pinch. So let's say you're doing this with a pick in your hand, and this opens up the world of hybrid picking. I got my cute little red guitar pick here, my Dunlop stubby 1 millimeter pick. Okay, so this is a real thing. I'm not just making this up because you asked a good question. Moments where you are physically holding the pick the same way you would always hold the pick, but you join, you let your other fingers join in. So the example I'm going to do, I'm going to do this pinch pattern. I'm going to do my E minor chord. You can't go wrong on E minor. Okay, instead of doing with bare fingers, check this out. And again, remember, when I say sixth string, I'm talking about the fat string, okay? Everything I'm about to do is either using my pick or my middle finger. Okay, pick on 6. And again, this is E minor chord. Middle finger on 3. Yeah. Pick on 6, middle finger on 3. Pick and middle finger at the same time. Pick on 4, middle finger on 2. My pick is going to pluck down at the same time that my middle finger plucks up towards my chin. That's why it's called a pinch. Boing. And then my middle finger is going to pluck the third string by itself. So here comes talking and then not talking. 6 with a pick. 3 with the middle finger. Pinch 4 and 2 with my pick and my middle finger on 3. 6, 3, pinch 3, 6, 3. It's going to start sounding monotonous, right, on my single chord. So change to G. Change to A minor. One little tiny adjustment. The very first pick on the 5th string. 5, 3, pinch 3. Because you don't want any of this stuff to feel or sound monotonous. Another reason to change chords, even if it does not, because I've had students say, no, I'm not bored. I could do this all day. Yeah, you're going to get a death grip. You're going to get all cramped up on whatever chord you're holding down, and that's not good. Okay, so you want to change chords for lots of reasons. So hybrid picking, long story short, that was you gave me an opportunity to bring up hybrid picking, which people do all the time. Experienced guitar players do all the time. They still hold on to the pick, but middle finger, ring finger, and potentially even the pinky, though in my experience, the pinky does not get used very much at all. But yeah, hybrid picking. And again, imagine growing out your middle or like ring fingernails a little bit, or putting on some sort of finger pick, like a metal finger pick on your middle or ring fingers. There's a lot of possibilities. The good news and bad news. The bad news is, in general, you're going to have to work on being light with your pick if you do hybrid picking, and a little more aggressive with your bare fingers, because it's not a fair fight, right? Your pick is naturally going to be a louder, plasticky, aggressive sound, and you're talking about your bare flesh or ideally a little bit of fingernail, but a softer sound with your fingers. So once you start hybrid picking, very quickly you realize balance is essential. So you're going to have to be a little bit soft, a little bit gentler with your pick, and nice and confident and aggressive with your fingers. Plan B, yeah, you wear some sort of finger pick on your bare fingers. But there's a little bit of an adjustment getting used to that. And again, I don't necessarily recommend that, but I can't deny that somewhere out there in the world are famous people who do that. A plastic pick and some sort of finger picks. I don't recommend it because you don't need it. You can do it with your bare fingers. Okay, so I hope that information was helpful. Hey, we have a Jeff Rhodes and a Scott Rhodes. You guys, what's going on here? Part of me hopes you guys are related, because I would love for you to tell your family and loved ones about our live stream. Part of me is just really happy that we have two people with the same last name. What are the chances? Okay, I'm scrolling down. Don't forget, folks, stick around, because I have a few things to talk to you about. Some things are follow-ups from last week. Some things are new. So, for instance, I want to turn you guys on to playing bass. There's no reason why you can't become decent bass players. I want to play Wild Mountain Thyme for you, for those of you who are interested in getting the tab and learning how to play Wild Mountain Thyme. I want to talk to you a little bit about how you know if your guitar needs new strings, needs a setup. We've touched on this topic a little bit in the past, but it's worth repeating. A to Z Me brings up a great reference. Dust in the Wind has a great finger picking pattern to practice on. Yes, that's in my book too. Darren Whitney brings up Travis picking. Yeah, now Travis picking is advanced. It just, for lack, if you give me one word to describe Travis picking, it's advanced. It's based on nice, repetitive, simple pattern picking, but Merle Travis took it to the next level. So that term gets thrown around a lot, Travis picking, and taken literally, it's the awesome way that Merle Travis played his guitar. But it gets used generally to mean your picking thumb is alternating between two different strings, and your picking fingertips are doing whatever it takes to bring the song to life. Jeff Rhodes says that he's trying to learn the bass, but can't seem to keep motivation to practice every day. How can I change that? Also, tips on learning slap bass. Ooh, I'm the wrong guy to talk about slap bass. But thanks for asking. But I'm happy to talk about, tell you what, Jeff, if you can stick around, I will, I'll address what you're talking about when I talk about bass stuff. Beginner guitar lessons. Remind me, beginning guitar lessons is our moderator, by the way. Thank you for being here, John. Remind me what I showed you. My little brain. I only had 5 students today. Typically on a Saturday, I could have 7 or 8. But that doesn't mean my brain is working better than it would be if I only had, if I had 7 or 8 students. Harmonica and guitar progress asked, do I have any tips on picking accuracy? Sometimes I hit the wrong string or add a string I don't want. Yeah. I'm happy to give you some tips. The good news is your picking accuracy improves in general just from playing the guitar. It's going to, the more you play, the more accurate you get. But let's give you some more specific advice. I have a cool exercise. Well, let's start with a simple answer, and then let's get into some specifics. Scales and arpeggios. You're always going to hear me recommend doing scales and arpeggios. Great way to improve your picking accuracy. Get any scale book. Go on Amazon, see whatever best-selling guitar scale book is, and get that one. Any scale book. And you can't go wrong practicing scales and arpeggios. Great way to improve your picking accuracy. But let me give you an exercise I kind of like. I'm going to do this with an E major chord because that's how I've been doing it with my students recently. But what I'm about to do, you can do with any chord. I encourage you, though, to pick a 6-string chord, a string, like a G, G7, E, E minor, E, 7. If you feel really brave, if you guys are into bar chords, do this with a bar chord, but I'm going to do this with the E major. Okay. I'm going to play it, and then we'll talk about it. And remember, the goal here is picking accuracy, okay? Okay, so what was I doing just then? The boom chicka pattern, but every boom was a different string, starting with a fat 6 string. The chicka was always consistent. It was always a light down up brush, essentially on the 3 skinny strings, but I wasn't counting the strings. So check this out, slow motion, downstroke on the 6th string, and a nice little brush on the treble strings, the skinny strings, down on the 5th string, down up, meaning brush, right? Boom, chicka. 6th string, chicka, 5th string, chicka, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. Okay, just it's a picking exercise, right? But at least it sounds like something, and your ability to do this opens up a bunch of possibilities, and we'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to do the same thing on a G chord. There's my G, 6th string, 5th, 4th, 3rd. Okay, notice I'm keeping my eyes on my right hand. This is going to sound like dumb advice, but there's no reason to look at your left hand, right? It's on the chord, Keep your eyes on your right hand at first. If you want to work on this for a minute and then close your eyes and look away and do it without looking, that's great, but that's not the number one goal. The number one goal is good aim with your right hand. Secondarily, sure, it's cool to do it without looking, but that's not the primary goal. Okay. You can do this with any chord. Of course, some chords don't require all 6 strings, right? So that's why I recommend doing it with one of the E's or one of the G's, any chord. Okay, so you're getting a couple benefits here. First of all, it's reinforcing one of the absolute most common approaches to rhythm guitar, which is you hit a fat string, and then you do a little brush. In this case, it's a brush down up. Now, what I'm doing here obviously has a country bluegrass kind of boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, kind of rhythm, right? That Johnny Cash railroad train rhythm, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, which is great for those of you who aren't pursuing country or bluegrass guitar. Nevertheless, the skill of hitting a very specific fat string or any string on the guitar, a very specific single string, and then strumming multiple strings as sort of a response, to the single string note, that skill is found in any guitar style. So, and if you hit the wrong string, don't stop, right? Just get it right the next time. So, number 1, you're getting some good accuracy practice with your pick. Number 2, you're getting good at this whole boom, chicka kind of rhythm. Squeeze the pick a little bit tighter when you do the individual note, and then just relax for a nice soft chicka sound. So literally, I'm squeezing right as I'm plucking the note. You want that note to pop out a little bit. You don't want that individual note to sort of blend with the strumming. You want that, give it a little personality. Best case scenario, you could sound like 2 different guitar players, right? One person going, and the other person going. Ooh, I'm going to put a name in the chat. Here's a guy. I don't have a link, but the first guy I saw kind of up close doing this style, or the first one that totally stood out, Robbie Fulks. Anybody out there know Robbie Fulks? Robbie Fulks, he and I lived in Chicago about the same time, and I would occasionally see Robbie Fulks play around the Chicago area. But the first time he was playing with a bluegrass band that came to my college campus, and I had never seen bluegrass guitar, period. And this whole boom, chicka, he was doing that as bluegrass guitar players do. And it was the fastest guitar playing, fastest acoustic guitar playing. It was just, I didn't even know what he was doing, and so, Robbie Fulks. Anybody out there know Robbie Fulks? He is a songwriter, guitar player. His name pops up every now and then. He made a very cool album with Jerry Lee Lewis's sister, Jerry Lee Lewis, the killer, the piano player, right? Robbie Fulks made an album with his sister. Hey, Candy, thank you for the super chat. So anyways, Robbie Fulks was the first guy that I saw. Oh, and this is a segue into, remember I said a minute ago, this exercise opens up a big can of worms. Okay, so Robbie Fulks was the first guy I saw not just going like this, but going fast and putting in that kind of hotshot, bluegrassy kind of stuff. Oh, I was 18, barely 18, which might not sound like a relevant point, but I'd only been playing guitar for 2 years. No lessons, no real idea of what I was getting myself into as a guitar player. And oh man, I couldn't. Oh, so very cool. Anyways, so last thing, and then I'll move on to another topic. As you're doing this exercise, I'm going to go back to my E major chord, 6th string chicka, 5th string chicka. Okay, here's how you begin adding embellishments that you can use the rest of your life. Instead of just hitting the 5th string, I'm going to temporarily take my middle finger off the 5th string, pluck it, and then hammer down, right? Hammer-ons with my middle finger. So now, here's my 6th string. Here's my 5th string with a hammer-on. Do it again. 6. Sounds a little interesting, right? How about doing it on the 4th string? Now, this is a little bit trickier. I'm still on the E major chord. I'm lifting off my ring finger. I'm really arching my other 2 fingers, my remaining fingers, because I don't want them to touch my 4th string at all, because I'm going to do a hammer-on on the 4th string. So now I have 6th string, just a regular 6th string. The 5th string with a hammer-on. The 4th string with a hammer-on. How about the 3rd string, my pointer finger doing a hammer-on? So now I have 6. Okay, all right, now we're making some music, right? Now it sounds less like an exercise and more like, ooh, a guitar solo is going to bust out at any time. Okay, so those are some of my thoughts on picking accuracy. Okay, I'm scrolling up before I scroll back down. So Jeff and Scott are father and son. Well, welcome. We're taking my son to college tomorrow, you guys. Tomorrow's the day. Gonna be quiet around my house. Candy says, can you show an upward chord strum? Yep. It's a good point. When you strum up on a chord, teachers, including me, often neglect that up strums 99% of the time are just a couple of strings, very lightly. Teachers, including me, sometimes will casually make it appear on paper like an upstroke or upstrum involves all strings or 5 strings or something, when in reality it's extremely common. If you're in the world of basic chord strumming, this kind of that kind of light chord strumming, upstrums very often are just 2 strings, 3 strings, 1 string, So apologies for any time in my life where I've ever not made that clear, because it's an extremely important piece of information. And don't forget, in general, you want to hold the pick surprisingly loosely. How do you know if you're holding it loosely enough? If you drop the pick, that's not a bad sign. If the pick is rotating while you play, that is not a bad sign. You want to hold the pick so loosely, but not quite to the point where you're dropping it or it's rotating out of your control. but only squeeze it 1% tighter, and that'll take care of the pick dropping or the pick rotating, okay? The reason I bring it up is an upstroke with a death grip on the pick is a bad sound. I'm not going to do it. An upstroke with a very light grip on the pick, you might as well be playing with a feather. It's very listenable. Think about it. An upstroke, by definition, you're hitting the skinnier strings first, right? Skinnier strings, they're a brighter, twangier sound. So you want to do it with a light touch with your pick. So can I hope that answers your question? Upstrokes, definitely. I mean, more than ever, you want to make sure you have a light grip on the pick. And really, typically, you're only hitting a few strings. Before I forget, don't feel like you have to change to a paper thin pick. I'm the enemy of paper thin picks. I don't know why they exist. It has nothing to do with how thick your pick is. You simply want to have a light, loose grip. The picks that I prefer are 1 millimeter, and they're stiff. They're not going anywhere. But because I hold them so loosely, when the music calls for that, I might as well be using a paper thin pick because they can wiggle, you know. So yeah. Beginner guitar lessons is that thing that hybrid guitar picking in G with an E and A string. Yeah, okay. So was it talking about a little hybrid guitar picking exercise? I hope I'm doing the one that you're thinking of. But this is going to be a cool exercise no matter what. I'm grabbing a G chord with my fretting hand, and the hybrid picking I'm about to do is, the sequence is going to be my pick, then my middle finger on the next skinnier string, and then my ring finger on the next skinnier string after that. So numerically, it's going to go 6, 5, 4, 6 with my pick, 5 with my middle finger plucking up towards my chin, 4 with my ring finger. Oops, why do those sound the same? 4 with my ring finger plucking up towards my chin. My pick is plucking down, right? 6, 5, 4. Again, G chord with my left hand. How about 5, 4, 3? How about 4, 3, 2? I can't sing this high. 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4. Now, what I'm hearing as I play this, I'm hearing that my pick is I'm being a little bit heavy-handed, a little bit loud with my pick, and not quite being loud enough with my middle and ring. So I'm going to remedy that by, you want to know the secret? Here it is, folks. The secret to getting good at anything on the guitar. How many people? We have 36 people. Okay, this is it. I'll timestamp this. When I timestamp the video in the next couple of days, 47 minutes into the live stream. You ready? Here it is. There's one thing I've learned after decades of playing the guitar and teaching the guitar. When you need to fix something that's not going well, you ready? 2 words. Slow down. Just slow down. You'd be surprised how difficult people make it seem. Just slow down. Just play slower. Now, to my ear, there's a better balance between the sound of the pick and the sound of my fingers. I feel I'm more in control. It's giving me more confidence that I can pick up the speed. Yeah. Just slow down. Okay. So that's a nice exercise for hybrid picking. Pick, middle finger, ring finger. Nice little 3-note sequences. Okay. How about Charlie Beagle? I think Dave Van Ronk passed away a little while back. A to Z Me is giving a shout out to Billy Strings. Yeah, Billy Strings. Okay. So let's take a break from questions and stuff. Harmonic and guitar progress. Is that good singing exercise? Trying to match the notes? Yeah, why not? It's always good it's always good to engage your voice while you're practicing for lots of reasons, including it just gets your mind that much more focused. If you're an adult of the human species, you have a lot of things on your mind. I know. I know. I have many of the same things on my mind. And by engaging your voice, I'm pretty confident that that keeps you focused even more on whatever the task at hand is. And if you can not simply engage your voice, but truly try to match the pitch of what you're playing, great, great. Your family members may or may not be amused by that. Speaking of family members, hello to my mom and dad. Some of you may not know that my mom and dad are regular watchers to the live stream. And so hello to them. In fact, hello to your moms and dads too. Maybe you can invite your moms and dads to watch my live stream. That would be pretty cool. That'd be great, right? You could have something to talk about on Thanksgiving. I'm just scrolling a little bit. Anybody heard of Robbie Fulks? No? After our live stream, go ahead and look him up. Robbie Fulks, interesting guy. Has written some extremely humorous songs. Let's see. I saw one more question. Charlie Beagle, my son did not grace us with much tuba practice around the house. So I wouldn't have minded that. Yeah, harmonica and guitar progress, you're bringing up an interesting point. Before YouTube, if you didn't have a teacher nearby, in fact, I'm so glad you brought this up because there's a story I want to tell. How did people learn the guitar, right? Yeah, you had to be pretty darn motivated. So that brings me to a story. I'm so glad you brought this up because I forgot to make a note to tell this story. So my birthday was last Sunday, had a very nice day out with my wife, where my son and I went out and had some yummy breakfast. And then my son had to go to work, and my wife and I went out, and I found a bookstore in New Haven, Connecticut that I had never been to before, the Gray Matter bookstore. Very cool. And they had a very nice used book selection, and I found some cool music books. So one of the books I found, get ready, because I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to take a guess at who I'm talking about. The book was full of interviews with guitarists, but specifically about their specific guitars or about learning the guitar. It wasn't about some big general career questions. And so there's a great story. Okay, so you ready for this story? Okay, I'm going to tell this story. I'm not going to tell you who the two guitar players are in the story, and because I'm curious to see if anyone can venture a guess. There was once upon a time, there's a young guitar player, and he had learned, I think in the case of this story, the way he's told the story, he had learned a C chord and a G chord. And he knew he needed a third chord to round out the triumvirate. Am I saying that right? Triumvirate. A lot of songs, most songs in the world require at least 3 chords. Okay, so the third chord he wanted to learn was a D7 chord. So he wanted to learn a C, a D7, and a G. And he knew it existed. He knew there's a third chord out there, but he couldn't figure it out. And by the way, the guy, this is a famous guitar player. He was a young guy, and a famous guitar player was coming through his town doing a show. And he just knew if he went to that show and watched closely, he would be able to figure out that chord. And he was right. So sure enough, this famous guitar player was doing his show in a small theater. I'll tell you right now, this story is a long time ago, not the 1970s, not the 1960s, not 1950s, before that. So we're talking about, I'm going to ask you to guess who these two guitar players are. Okay, so the guy's on stage playing the song. The young guitar player tells his buddy, look, man, every time he hits that third chord, they brought a flashlight because it's a dark theater. Shine the flashlight right on his hand, and got a pencil and paper. I'm going to write down, I'm going to, try to figure out which finger goes where. Okay, so the guitar player on stage is playing the song, and pretty soon he realizes that someone's shining this flashlight on him. And at some point he stops the show and he says, look, what's going on here, kids? Every time I play this D7 chord, I see a flash from the audience. Well, the young guitar player speaks up and says, Yeah, sorry about that, but I know there's a third chord, and I want to learn that third chord. And I believe, I got to reread this story, but I believe the guitar player on stage says, okay, look, here it is, D7, there's a chord. Hope you're happy. All right. And maybe they met after. Okay, so the question is, who are these two guitar players? So this goes way back in history. I mean, it was the 1900s. These are two guitar players that are household names. Maybe not my household, but well, at least one of them is a household name. Two very famous. You get the idea. So who are these two guitar? I'll tell you in a minute. I won't keep you waiting that long. What's my point? And why was I reminded of this? Harmonica and Guitar Progress. And before YouTube, I mean, how do people figure out this stuff? While I'm letting you think about who these two guitar players were, both of whom I believe are deceased now, both of whom the young guy went on to be super famous. How famous? Super famous. But the guitar player on stage, also very famous. Before I tell you who these two guitar players are, the Beatles had the same story. The Beatles, by the way, I live for stuff like this. I love these stories. There are things I don't remember about, this morning, but these stories, I'm going to remember them forever. The Beatles knew, I believe it was E and A, and they knew there was a third chord that complemented E and A, which was B7. And the story was the Beatles took a bus across town, Liverpool, presumably, because they knew there was some person who lived on the other side of town who could teach them the third chord, and that's how they learned the third chord. They got it. What's the third chord? B7. Got it. Thank you. Took the bus back home. Okay, let's, I love that. Okay, so who are the two guitar players? Any guesses out there? Looking at some excellent guesses. You don't have it yet, but these are excellent guesses. Chet Atkins, excellent guess. Buddy Holly, excellent guess. Leighton Hopkins, Howlin' Wolf, Jimi Hendrix, excellent guess. I'm going to give you a clue. The guy on stage went on to own the California Angels baseball team. So right there, some of you know who that is right away. Others are like, what? No, he did. The guy on stage who stopped the show and said, who keeps shining a flashlight on me? That guy went on to own the California Angels. And Scott Rhodes says Gene Autry. Yes, Gene Autry. Gene Autry was the singing cowboy on stage who was putting on the show, who clearly knew how to play the guitar. So who was a young guy with his buddy? He had the pencil and paper. His buddy had the flashlight. Who was that young guy? Let me give you a clue about who this guy was. Ooh, this guy. This may or may not help you, but it's a great story. A little bit later in his life, as he was establishing himself as a great guitar player, he was in a bad car accident, showed up at the hospital, a snowy Wisconsin night. Don't you love how I'm telling the story like I was there? It was a snowy Wisconsin night. Shows up unconscious with a messed up, broken elbow from this car accident. And the doctor in the ER said, whoa, wait a minute. I know who this young guy is. He is a fantastic guitar player. I got to make sure I set his arm just right so he can continue with his career. Thank you, Doc. And the rest is history, because he did continue his career. And so who is that? David Belcher, ding, ding, ding. He knows the answer, Les Paul. Les Paul. So that's how Les Paul learned how to play the guitar from watching Gene Autry. So anyways, thanks for letting me. I love a good story. I love a good music story. I love a good guitar story. Hey, Julie. Julie says, thank you for the picking tutorial. Thank you, guys. So some of you may be aware, Julie is, that you're welcome to make a contribution to the cause here by doing a super chat. And a super chat is available to you by that little $sign in that rectangular box down at the bottom of the chat. And like I mentioned, my son is taking him to college tomorrow. So you are supporting the cause in a variety of ways. And I thank you. Those of you who have made super chat donations, I thank you. And those of you who are in a position to do that today, I thank you in advance. Hey, we have 33 viewers. We have 25 thumbs up. I love it when there's balance in the universe. A certain number of viewers and a certain number of thumbs up. So if those of you who have not given a thumbs up today, no rush, but anytime you got that mouse handy, you can give this live stream a thumbs up. Also, before I forget, those of you who might have to leave or who came in late or whatever, you can watch this whole thing, including the chats, in the future This whole thing is being recorded. You can watch it as a YouTube video. Before long, I'm going to turn all of these live streams into podcasts so you can just listen. And I'll let you guys know. In case you want to know when stuff like that happens and updates and stuff, just head over to Facebook or Instagram and just do a search for Songbike, all one word, SONGBIKE. And you can follow me on social media. And that's where I give updates to folks. Like, hey, this thing is about to happen, or I just posted this thing, or whatever. Okay. Before I run out of time, because I know I'm capable of talking. Walter says he can't give a thumbs up because he's a truck driver and he's still at work. Hey, you know what, Walter? That's awesome. That makes my day. That is awesome. So I appreciate that. Hey, Bob, thank you for the big super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you, Bob. I really do appreciate that. So, hey, let me play more and talk less. I'm going to play for you for a moment here. And what I'm going to play is my chord melody arrangement of the famous tune Wild Mountain Thyme. And we're doing this song for a moment here for a bunch of reasons. It's a summer song. The song, refers to it's summer. It's a theme of summer and whatever else you want to read into the poetic lyrics of this tune. The Byrds, right? The Byrds did a kind of a rock and roll version of this. Not rock and roll, but I mean, the Byrds did the Byrds kind of version of this tune. For some of you, that might have been how you heard the tune in the first place, Wild Mountain Thyme. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I just did. Okay. Let's see how I do. I'm going to move my music stand. Ooh, that's pretty good because I can see my music, but you guys hopefully can still see the guitar okay. Let's try this. Oh, excellent. I play better with the music right in front of me. Love it. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so chord melody version. I put in a few mistakes intentionally, I'm sure. Subconsciously, I put in a few little flubs because I want to remind us all that we're all human. So Wild Mountain Thyme, what did I just do? I played a chord melody version of the tune. So that means you hear the melody, but you hear nice supportive harmony notes sometimes. Not every melody note had a harmony note because that can sound kind of clunky, This is an extremely satisfying thing to pursue. It's an extremely satisfying thing to play. Even if you love singing, you don't have to sing when you play this style because you're producing the melody. The guitar